Is death truly the end, or is there more waiting for us on the other side? What happens after we die? Is death really the final curtain, or is it just the beginning of something greater? Stay with me as we unravel one of life's greatest mysteries. We all know that one day we'll face death, but few of us truly understand it. Throughout history, philosophers, scientists, and spiritual leaders have debated what death really means. Some say it's the end of everything, while others claim it's just a passage into a different kind of existence. But what if death is not as final as we've been taught? Think about it. Death is something we all know is inevitable, but we don't often stop to truly think about it. Imagine yourself standing on the brink of this vast, dark, and mysterious space, where everything as we know it seems to stop. But is that really the case? Do we simply vanish, like a candle snuffed out by a breeze? Or is there something waiting for us on the other side? Imagine the world isn't just made up of what we see with our eyes. There's so much we cannot perceive, and so much more to explore. Could death be a transition, a doorway into another kind of existence? Death is a universal experience, something we all must face, whether we want to or not. It's inevitable and we can't escape it. It doesn't matter where we're from or how much wealth we accumulate. One day, we'll all reach this final chapter. But for something that is so universally acknowledged, it's surprising how little we really understand about it. We fear it, we wonder about it. But do we truly understand it? Philosophers have spent thousands of years contemplating death's significance. What does it really mean to die? Do we simply cease to exist? Or does our essence, our soul, our consciousness continue in some form? Some say death is the final, absolute end. They believe that when we die, we become nothing. But others argue that death is a passage, a shift from one realm of existence to another. Spiritual leaders, too, have their own perspectives. They teach about the afterlife, about heaven and hell, or about reincarnation, where our souls are reborn into new forms. These teachings come from different traditions, but many share the idea that death isn't the end. It's just another part of a much larger story. Here's the crux of debate. Some believe death is the end, a permanent shutdown, the last page of a book. For these people, death signifies the end of consciousness, the final separation from life as we know it. On the other hand, there are those who believe in life beyond the grave. This belief is rooted in the idea that our consciousness, our soul, or our energy continues to exist even when our bodies have passed on. Some see death as simply the end of our earthly existence, while our soul moves on to a different realm or state of being. What if everything we've been taught about death, about its finality, is incomplete? What if death is not the abrupt end we've always feared, but rather the beginning of something much more profound and mysterious? Maybe we haven't been looking at death in the right way. Maybe it's not about the end at all, but about what comes next. Death is an inevitable part of life that all humans will face. However, how different cultures, religions, and societies view death varies greatly. These views shape not only how we approach life, but also how we understand our ultimate fate. Let's explore how different cultures and religions approach death, the afterlife, and the journey of the soul. In Christianity, death is viewed as a separation of the body and soul. However, it's far from the end. Christians believe in eternal life. After death, the soul is judged by God. Depending on how a person lived their life and their relationship with God, they will either go to heaven or hell. Heaven is depicted as a place of eternal peace, joy, and communion with God, where believers live in perfect harmony. Hell, on the other hand, is often seen as a place of punishment for those who lived in sin and rejected God. Death is not the end. It is a passage from this life to eternal life, whether in heaven or hell. Death is not an end, but a continuation of the soul's journey through multiple lives until it reaches liberation. We may never fully understand the mysteries of death, but these very beliefs serve as a reminder that death is not something to fear, but rather something to embrace as part of the natural flow of existence. One of the most powerful aspects of NDEs is the consistency in the experiences reported by individuals, even when they have no connection to one another. These stories have been shared by people from all over the world and span across different cultures and religions. A common theme in NDEs is a sensation of moving toward a bright, loving light. Many people describe it as an overwhelmingly peaceful light, far more beautiful than anything they've seen in their earthly life. Some even report feeling a sense of unconditional love radiating from it. It's as if this light is calling them home, offering them peace, and providing a deep sense of belonging. Example: a man named John had an NDE after suffering a severe heart attack. During his experience, he recalls being enveloped by a warm, radiant light that filled him with a profound sense of peace and love. John wasn't afraid, despite knowing he was close to death. Instead, he felt calm, as if he had been embraced by something beyond human understanding. Another common element of NDEs is the sensation of being outside one's body, often floating above it and watching the medical staff working to revive them. This phenomenon is not just reported by one person, but by many individuals who claim they have witnessed things they could not have possibly known about in their physical state. Example: a woman named Claire recounts how she watched her own body from above during a car accident. She was able to describe in vivid detail the actions of the paramedics as they worked to save her life. When she came back to consciousness, she was shocked to realize that the events she had witnessed were true, as they were later confirmed by those who had been present. One of the most universal themes in NDEs is the overwhelming feeling of peace and serenity. It's as if time stops and the worries, fears, and anxieties of life fade away. Many people feel as though they are in the presence of something greater than themselves, often describing the feeling as being surrounded by love and acceptance. Example: after a severe stroke, David experienced a sense of floating in a peaceful, blissful state. He describes his feeling as though all of his worldly concerns had melted away. There was no judgment or fear, only a deep, profound peace that filled him entirely. While many people who experience NDEs share strikingly similar experiences, scientists have proposed various explanations for these phenomena. Some of the most common theories involve the brain's response during extreme physical stress. Some scientists believe that NDEs are simply a product of the brain responding to extreme stress. When the brain is deprived of oxygen, especially during moments of cardiac arrest or trauma, it may create vivid, dreamlike experiences. These explain the bright light, the sensation of floating, or even the sense of peace. Extreme trauma: the brain might release a rush of chemicals, such as endorphins or serotonin, which could lead to feelings of euphoria, peace, and altered perceptions of reality. The visual and emotional experiences reported by many individuals could be caused by these chemicals. Another explanation posits that a person's cultural and personal beliefs influence their NDE. For example, someone with a religious background might describe meeting a spiritual figure or angel, while someone without religious beliefs might not experience this. Despite these scientific explanations, the mystery remains. NDEs do not fit neatly into a scientific box. Why, for example, do people from different walks of life, cultures, and belief systems all describe such similar experiences? People who have never been exposed to religious teachings or spiritual practices often describe feelings of profound love, peace, and the same light that religious people claim to experience in their afterlife visions. Could it be that these NDEs are simply neurological reactions, or could they be something deeper? Some would argue that these shared experiences are evidence that the soul is real and that consciousness transcends a physical body. Perhaps death is not the final end, but a transition into another state of being, a state that remains beyond the comprehension of current science. One of the most thought-provoking questions we can ask after learning about NDEs is, how can so many people across the world, from different backgrounds, describe the same peaceful light or feeling of love when they've crossed the other side? Could it be that death isn't as final as we think? This question isn't just about the scientific explanation or the cultural interpretations of NDEs. It's about exploring the very nature of life and death itself. If so many people, regardless of where they come from, experience the same phenomenon, what does that mean for our understanding of existence? Could it be that death, as we've been taught, isn't the end? Could it be a transition, a journey into something more? Perhaps NDEs are not just about individuals' perceptions or dreams. Maybe, just maybe, they are glimpses into a truth that lies beyond our current understanding of life and death. Near-death experiences present a fascinating and mysterious glimpse into what might lie beyond this life. Whether they are neurological responses or proof of an afterlife, these experiences challenge us to think deeply about the nature of existence. They inspire us to consider that maybe, just maybe, death isn't as final as we've always believed. At the end of the day, NDEs leave us with more questions than answers, But one thing is for sure, these experiences deeply change those who go through them, often giving them a renewed sense of purpose and a transformed understanding of life, love, and death. The idea of the soul has been explored in various ways. Many believe it's an immaterial essence that defines who we are. It's what makes us unique, with our personalities, memories, and emotions. In many religious traditions, the soul is considered eternal and is often said to live on after the death of the physical body. In Christianity, the soul is seen as a divine creation by God that continues to live after death, either in heaven or hell depending on one's life choices. In Hinduism, the soul, or Atman, is eternal and goes through cycles of birth, death, and rebirth, a process known as reincarnation. In ancient Greek philosophy, thinkers like Plato and Aristotle believed that the soul is the essence of a person, with Plato describing it as immortal, constantly learning and evolving. But even beyond religion, many still question, what exactly is the soul, and how does it interact with our body? Consciousness, on the other hand, refers to our awareness of ourselves and our surroundings. It is what allows us to think, feel, and make decisions. It's the very thing that enables us to experience life, to ask questions like this one, and to ponder our existence. In philosophy, consciousness is often referred to as the mind, the inner experience we all share. Some philosophers like René Descartes believed in the concept of dualism, where the mind and body are separate, with the mind being immaterial and the body being physical. In modern science, consciousness is sometimes seen as a byproduct of brain activity. The idea is that consciousness is not something separate from the body, but rather emerges from complex neural networks and chemical processes. But as much as we understand about the brain, science still doesn't fully explain how consciousness arises from matter. How does a collection of neurons and electrical signals give rise to subjective experience? How does the sense of self emerge from the physical brain? This leads us to the heart of the mystery. If the soul or consciousness exists beyond the physical body, what happens to it after we die? Does it simply disappear? Or does it move on to another realm? Let's break down some of the key perspectives on this. One of the most intriguing theories comes from the realm of quantum physics. Quantum theory suggests that energy is never truly destroyed, it can only change forms. This principle could be extended to consciousness. Some researchers propose that when the body dies, the energy of our consciousness, our essence, might transition into another form of existence. This theory is known as the quantum consciousness hypothesis. The idea here is that the soul or consciousness is a form of energy that never truly dies. Could our essence, our consciousness, be a type of energy that continues beyond our physical death? If energy is never destroyed, could our awareness simply transform into something else? On the other hand, materialism posits that consciousness is entirely a product of the brain. When the brain ceases to function, so does consciousness. According to this view, when we die, our sense of self, our consciousness, simply vanishes because it is intrinsically tied to the physical state of our brain. In contrast, dualism suggests that consciousness and the soul are separate from the body. The soul is thought to be eternal, while the body is temporary. In this view, even though the body dies, the soul continues on, journeying to another plane of existence. If consciousness is just a product of the brain, then when the brain dies, does the self just cease to exist? Or, as dualism suggests, does something else, something deeper, persist beyond the physical? There are countless accounts from people who have had near-death experiences, NDEs. These experiences often involve sensations of floating outside the body, traveling through tunnels, and encountering peaceful lights or deceased loved ones. Although scientists often explain these experiences as hallucinations or a result of the brain shutting down, many NDE survivors describe them as real, transformative events. Some of these individuals report feelings of deep peace and love that defy explanation, experiences that make them believe their consciousness continues after death. If near-death experiencers consistently describe similar sensations and sights across different cultures and religions, could it be that their consciousness was, in fact, traveling somewhere beyond the body? Philosophers have long debated the nature of the soul and its fate after death. Plato's view. Plato believed that the soul was immortal and that it would continue to exist after the body dies. He argued that death is simply the separation of the soul from the body, and the soul would journey to a realm of pure truth and knowledge. Aristotle's view. Aristotle, on the other hand, believed that the soul was the form of the body. Without the body, the soul would cease to exist, though he never fully explained where the consciousness or soul would go after death. Spiritual views. Many spiritual traditions believe that death is merely a transition into a new state of existence. Some believe in reincarnation, where the soul is reborn into a new body, while others believe in a spiritual continuation, where the soul ascends to a higher plane of existence. Ultimately, the big question remains, if our consciousness survives the death of the body, where does it go? Does the soul leave the body and journey to another realm, such as heaven, the afterlife, or reincarnation? Or does consciousness simply fade away, as many materialists suggest, trapped in a void with no trace of our existence remaining? These questions are not just scientific or philosophical, they are deeply personal. The way we answer them influences how we live our lives, how we view our relationships, and how we cope with the idea of our eventual death. The question of what happens to our consciousness after death is one of the most profound and unsettling questions of human existence. Science and philosophy provide fascinating perspectives, but the truth may be something far greater than what we can currently comprehend. Whether you believe in an afterlife, reincarnation, or simply that death marks the end, what truly matters is how we live our lives while we have the chance. What do you believe happens to your consciousness after you die? Is there an afterlife, or is there something else waiting for us? The idea that life doesn't end with death is something we have pondered for centuries. Traditionally, religion and philosophy have given us answers to the question of what happens when we die. But in recent years, science has started to take a deeper look at this question too. While we may not have definitive proof yet, certain scientific perspectives offer intriguing possibilities for continued existence after physical death. In this exploration, we'll break down the intersection of brain function, consciousness, and the idea of energy or information surviving beyond death. This concept might seem abstract, but it raises some powerful questions. Is there a part of us that continues on after the body ceases to function? The human brain is a control center of our body, and scientists have long been interested in how it generates consciousness, the awareness of our thoughts, feelings, and experiences. To understand whether consciousness can persist after death, we need to first grasp how it arises in the brain. The brain uses electrical signals to communicate between neurons. These signals make it possible for us to think, feel, and interact with the world. When someone dies, the body's functions cease and brain activity stops. So, if consciousness is dependent on the brain, can it simply end with death? Consciousness, as we experience it, is often tied to brain activity, but there is still much mystery about the exact nature of consciousness. It remains one of the biggest puzzles in science. Some scientists propose that consciousness is not strictly confined to the brain, but may involve fields of energy or information that extend beyond the physical limits of the body. Could consciousness, the awareness of self in the world, be more than just the sum of our brain's electrical activity? And if so, could it survive the death of the brain? This is where the concept of energy or information as separate from the brain comes into play. In physics, energy is a fundamental concept. It's the ability to do work, and it can't be created or destroyed. It can only change forms. Everything in the universe, including the human body, is made up of energy. So, let's consider an important question. Energy is never destroyed. According to the law of conservation of energy, energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It simply transforms from one state to another. Our bodies, as physical entities, are made up of atoms, molecules, and energy. When we die, our body breaks down, and the energy in our body dissipates into the environment. This energy doesn't disappear. It changes form. Could our essence be energy? What if the energy that makes up our thoughts, emotions, and consciousness doesn't vanish with death, but instead changes form? Some scientists speculate that our consciousness could be an expression of energy in the brain, and once our body dies, this energy might persist or transform into something else. This could be a subtle but fascinating argument for life after death. Quantum physics is one of the most exciting areas of modern science, and it's also one of the most mysterious. Quantum theory explores the behavior of tiny particles at the atomic and subatomic level. Some of the findings in this field suggest that reality itself is more complex than we can see or even understand with our usual senses. In quantum physics, particles can exist in multiple states at once, a phenomenon called superposition. Some quantum theories suggest that consciousness could operate on a quantum level, existing beyond space and time, and not bound by the physical world. If this is true, consciousness might not simply cease when the body dies. Instead, it could persist in a quantum state or transfer into another form of existence. The concept of parallel universes or multiverses is another fascinating idea from quantum physics. This theory proposes that there are multiple realities or universes that exist simultaneously, and every decision we make could create a new parallel universe. Some speculate that if our consciousness is part of the fabric of the universe, it could potentially shift between these universes after death. Could our consciousness exist in a parallel universe after we die? If consciousness is not confined to our physical body, might it continue to exist in another dimension or reality unseen by our current senses? This is an intriguing possibility that suggests life after death in a form we don't yet fully understand. Another fascinating concept comes from the theory of the holographic universe. This theory suggests that the entire universe is like a hologram, with information encoded in a two-dimensional surface. If the universe is a hologram, this means that information might be the most fundamental part of reality, rather than physical matter. The information in our bodies, in this model, every thought, every action, and even our consciousness itself is information that could, in theory, exist independently of the physical body. If this information exists in a non-physical form, it could survive death and continue in some way, perhaps instead of dying. The information that makes us who we are is encoded in a deeper layer of reality, allowing us to exist in some form after death. If the universe is made of information, could the information that makes up our consciousness in essence survive beyond the death of our body, like a kind of data that lives on in another form? If all the matter in the universe is energy, and energy never dies, could it be that our essence, the energy of our consciousness, continues in some form after our physical death? This question challenges us to think beyond the traditional view of death as the end. It asks us to consider the possibility that our consciousness, which some might describe as the soul, is more than just a product of our brain. If everything in the universe is energy and energy never dies, might our consciousness survive in another form after the death of our physical body? Could it exist beyond space and time, free from the confines of our earthly experiences? As of today, we don't have a definitive scientific answer to whether life continues after death. However, the ideas presented by quantum physics, consciousness studies, and the concept of energy provide intriguing possibilities. Maybe death isn't the end, but a transition into something different, something beyond our current understanding. We might not have all the answers, but the questions themselves open up a new realm of possibilities. And perhaps, one day, science will help us understand whether our consciousness can indeed persist after death. And if so, in what form? Death is often perceived as an end, the final chapter in the book of life. But what if this understanding of death is incomplete? What if death isn't an end at all, but a crucial part of a larger, ongoing process? Imagine, instead, that death is a transformation, an integral step in the ever-continuing cycle of life. This idea is not just a philosophical or spiritual belief, but reality observed in nature every day. Everything in nature, from the smallest microorganisms to the largest creatures, operates within a natural cycle of life and death. In this way, death becomes a necessary step in the ongoing renewal of life, creating a balance that sustains all of existence. In nature, death is an essential part of the circle of life. Plants, animals, and humans, all living beings, are part of a bigger web of existence where life and death are connected in a continuous flow. Each living being plays a role in maintaining the balance of the ecosystem. Whether the plant that dies and decays, enriching the soil for new plants to grow, or the death of an animal providing food for others, death is an integral force that contributes to the ongoing life cycle. When a living organism dies, it doesn't just vanish. Its death leads to a transformation. The body decays, breaking down into nutrients that nourish the earth. These nutrients are then used by plants, creating a cycle of regeneration. So, in essence, death gives birth to new life. It is not an absolute end, but a transformation that enables other life forms to thrive. Natural examples in the wild. Think of a forest. When trees die, they decompose and turn into fertile soil. This soil nourishes new trees and plants, creating a constant cycle of rebirth. Even the animals that pass away contribute in the same way, as their bodies are broken down into nutrients that support the life around them. Death, in this sense, isn't something to fear or lament, but something that has a purpose that renews the earth and supports life in a way that nothing else can. The process of decomposition is where life and death meet in a beautiful and humbling way. When an organism dies, its body breaks down through natural processes, and the nutrients it was once made return to the earth. These nutrients are then absorbed by plants, providing the building blocks for new life to grow. This process of decomposition is not destructive but regenerative. It's a form of renewal that ensures the cycle of life continues. In many species, death and rebirth are not separate but intertwined. Some creatures undergo metamorphosis. For instance, a butterfly begins its life as a caterpillar, dies to its old form, and is reborn as something entirely new. This transition from one form to another highlights the idea of death not as an end, but as a transformation into something more. Similarly, in nature, the death of one being ensures that others can thrive, creating a continuous, dynamic system. The changing of the seasons offers another vivid example of how death leads to new life. In autumn, trees shed their leaves, a process that may appear to be a kind of death. However, this allows the tree to conserve its energy and prepare for new growth in the spring. The death of the leaves nourishes the soil and in turn creates the conditions for new leaves to bloom. It's a cycle of rest, rebirth, and growth, showing that death is a necessary step before new life can emerge. In the natural world, death is a force that brings about change, often for the better. Without death, there will be stagnation. There will be no room for new growth, no space for fresh ideas or opportunities. Just as a forest needs space to allow new trees to grow, human societies and individuals also need change to thrive. Death in the natural world brings change and renewal. The death of old ideas, old systems, and old ways of thinking can give rise to new possibilities. Personal growth through loss. On a more personal level, many people have experienced that the death of a loved one or a significant loss can serve as a transformative experience. While the pain of such loss is real and profound, it also provides an opportunity for growth. It can lead to greater appreciation for life, deeper understanding of oneself, and a renewed sense of purpose. Death, in this context, acts as a catalyst for emotional and spiritual transformation. What if death isn't the final curtain, but a new beginning? In the same way that a seed must die to give rise to a new plant, perhaps our physical death is simply a transition into another state of being a new form of existence. This idea challenges a common view that death is an absolute end, instead suggesting that it is merely one phase of an eternal process. Can we embrace death as a transformation rather than a termination? This question invites us to shift our perspective. Instead of fearing death as the ultimate end, what if we saw it as a necessary transformation that ensures life continues in some form? By embracing this view, we may find a sense of peace, understanding that our passing is not something to fear, but something that plays a vital role in the cycle of existence. In conclusion, the circle of life teaches us that death is not something to be feared, but something to be respected and accepted. Just as nature depends on death for regeneration and rebirth, perhaps we too must accept that death is an essential part of the human experience. It's a transformation, not a termination. The energy, love, and impact we leave behind can continue to influence and nourish the lives of others. And in this way, our death may not be the end at all, but simply another chapter in the never-ending story of life. Could it be that death, as we know it, is just a doorway to something greater? As we contemplate the mysteries of life and death, let's remember that the natural world shows us time and again that endings are merely preludes to new beginnings. And in that, perhaps we find our greatest hope that death is not an end, but an ongoing transformation that keeps life flowing in endless cycles. One of the most captivating aspects of reincarnation is the notion that the soul's journey is not static. It is a dynamic process of learning, growing, and evolving. The soul is not bound by a single life, but rather continues to develop through a series of lifetimes, each one offering new lessons, challenges, and opportunities for growth. At this point, you may be asking, what if death is merely the end of one chapter, and we are born again, given another chance to grow, learn, and evolve? Could reincarnation be a real phenomenon? This is not a question with a clear answer, but one that has fascinated humanity for millennia. Let's break it down. The belief that we may have multiple lifetimes allows for the possibility that death is merely one part of a much larger and more meaningful existence. Through reincarnation, we can learn, grow, and evolve continuously, striving toward enlightenment and peace with each new birth. So we believe, is death really the end? Or it could be just another chapter in an endless story of growth, transformation, and rebirth? Share your thoughts and beliefs with us in the comments below, because this is a conversation worth having. Personal beliefs and faith are powerful forces that shape how we see the world and ultimately how we view death. The idea that death is not the end of our existence can provide great comfort to many and can even be a source of strength and hope during life's most challenging moments. Faith, whether spiritual, religious, or even philosophical, plays a significant role in shaping how we navigate our lives and the inevitable reality of death. Personal beliefs often help answer the questions that arise in our minds about what happens when we die. For some, belief in an afterlife, reincarnation, or spiritual continuation provides a sense of meaning and purpose, not only in life but in death as well. Faith in an afterlife, be it heaven, paradise, or another form of spiritual existence, offers a sense of comfort that death is not the end. It suggests that life is not a fleeting moment, but rather part of a larger, ongoing story. For example, in Christianity, many people believe in the resurrection of the dead and eternal life with God. This belief provides a sense of security and peace for those who are grieving the loss of loved ones, knowing that they will meet again in the afterlife. In Hinduism and Buddhism, the belief in reincarnation suggests that life is cyclical. The soul continues its journey through different lives, learning and evolving. This idea gives meaning to each life and offers hope for those who may fear death, knowing that their soul will have a chance to grow and progress in another life. When we hold a belief in the afterlife or reincarnation, we are able to view death through a different lens. Rather than seeing it as a final curtain, we see it as part of an ongoing journey, a natural transition. Our personal beliefs act as a foundation, helping us to make peace with the idea that death is not something to fear, but something to embrace as part of the cycle of existence. Faith is one of the greatest tools humans have in overcoming the fear of death. The fear of the unknown is one of the most common sources of anxiety about death. However, faith offers a sense of certainty. It provides answers to the unanswerable questions. What happens after we die? Is there something waiting for us beyond this life? For many, faith is a guiding light that leads them through difficult moments. For those who believe in an afterlife, the idea of a loved one's soul continuing to exist, or the promise of eternal peace, reduces the dread associated with death. The understanding that death is a natural part of life, rather than something to fear, helps individuals live their lives more freely, with less anxiety and more hope. Faith in life after death can also bring a deep sense of acceptance. Instead of fighting the inevitable or being paralyzed by the fear of dying, people with strong faith often approach death with humility and peace. They view death not as a failure or something to be avoided at all costs, but as a transition, a gateway to another phase of existence, whether that's an eternal reunion with a higher power or the chance to start again in a new form. When you believe in something greater than yourself, you understand that death is not something that can be controlled or predicted. It is simply part of the natural order of life. Faith helps individuals let go of their fear and surrender to the process, trusting that they will be cared for, either in this life or the next. Faith offers hope for a better existence after death. For some, this hope comes from the belief in heaven or a paradise, where there is no pain or suffering. For others, it may come from the idea that their soul will be reincarnated, and in the next life, they will have the chance to make things right, experience more, or reach a higher state of consciousness. This hope transcends the fear of the end. It's not just about the desire to live forever, but about believing that life has a deeper purpose that continues beyond our current physical existence. Faith allows us to view death as a stepping stone, not the final destination, and in doing so, it transforms our experience of life. When we think about death and the afterlife, it's important to ask ourselves, how does what we believe shape how we live today? If we believe in an afterlife, reincarnation, or spiritual continuation, How does that belief give us the courage to live better lives in the present? Believing in life after death can bring us closer to living a life filled with purpose and meaning. If we believe that our actions in this life matter, and that there's more to existence beyond what we see, we may be motivated to live in a way that reflects our values, whether that's through acts of kindness, seeking truth, or striving to live a morally good life. For instance, if we believe in the idea of karma and reincarnation, we may work harder to ensure that we live a compassionate life, knowing that our actions today will affect not just our future life, but the lives of others as well. Similarly, believing in an afterlife where our deeds are counted for might inspire us to live with greater integrity, knowing that our actions have consequences beyond the physical realm. By choosing to believe in something beyond death, we can face life with more courage, knowing that our existence has purpose. We start to see life not just as a series of random events, but as part of a larger story, one where we can grow, evolve, and leave a lasting impact. Ultimately, our belief systems give us the strength to embrace death with dignity and courage. They allow us to step into the unknown with hope instead of fear. Whether we believe in an afterlife, reincarnation, or the continuation of the soul in another form, faith provides a sense of comfort, reduces the anxiety surrounding death, and increases our hope for what lies beyond. By shaping our understanding of life after death, our beliefs help us navigate this life with purpose and meaning. They guide our choices, inform our actions, and allow us to live a life of integrity and compassion. So, ask yourself, what do you believe about death, and how does that belief influence the way you live your life today? So, what can we conclude about death? Is it really the end, or is it just the beginning of a new journey? While science can provide theories and cultures have their own interpretations, one thing is clear: our view of death can significantly shape how we live our lives. What do you believe? Is death the final chapter, or is it just a transformation into something greater? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, no matter what happens after death, the legacy we leave behind is what truly matters.